Mr. Daniel Goh.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, alarm bells have been ringing around the world about the climate emergency facing our planet. The Prime Minister addressed the climate emergency in his National Day rally speech recently. Even before this climate emergency, Singapore has been facing a waste emergency for decades now. Already, our only landfill at Pulau Semakau had its lifespan shortened from 2045 to 2035. We only have 15 odd years left to solve this problem. We knew about this emergency for a while, and yet our responses have not been as strong as they should be. In laying the framework to compel producers of e-waste, packaging waste and food waste to reduce, reuse and recycle their waste, this bill is good, though late in coming. There is a lot of discussion about the circular economy approach to addressing the problematic waste streams. The Zero Waste Master Plan is supposed to express the circular economy aspiration to eliminate waste and to continually reuse resources in the production-consumption cycle. The target announced is to reduce the daily waste sent to Semakau by 30% by 2030. Is this ambitious enough for the waste emergency we are facing? How much will this slow down the filling up of Pulau Semakau and extend its lifespan? What happens when Semakau is filled up eventually? Why not up the ante to have the daily waste halved by 2030? In addition to these general questions, I would like to discuss three aspects that I think are being neglected by the framework to be instituted by this bill. The first is that the treatment of the three waste streams does not address the issue of transnational waste cycles. The second is that the treatment of the food waste stream is too focused on the waste itself and neglects the upstream causes of food waste, including the way we eat. The third is that our public education approach is still stuck in the communication campaign model and neglects the more effective model of targeting problem areas smartly by social nudging. The first issue is transnational waste streams. With regards to e-waste, the current framework targets producers of electronic and electrical goods with retail presence here in Singapore, and also retail companies selling these goods. This is still based on the brick-and-mortar economy. However, the trend is for consumers to order their electronic goods online, and it's not uncommon for small to medium-sized goods to be shipped from overseas these days through micro-retailers utilizing online platforms to connect with consumers. How will the extended producer responsibility framework apply to these micro-retailers and overseas producers? How will the e-waste from these production-consumption streams be audited and factored into the EPR system? These are not trivial questions, as we should expect online shopping and transnational delivery to increase in scope and scale as technologies improve and society evolves. The same applies to packaging waste. Online shopping and transnational delivery mean more packaging will be used to ensure goods are not damaged by extended shipping. The current framework targets producers of packaging and package producers with annual turnover of more than $10 million. What percentage of packaging waste do these producers account for? Does this cover the growing online shopping arms of these producers? How about the growing field of micro-retailers and overseas producers selling to local consumers through online platforms? The other major problem is the fact that we export 30% of our recyclable waste to countries including Australia, China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea and Thailand for processing. Some of these countries are closing their doors to waste import. While there have been cases of waste dumping and e-waste pollution hurting local communities, they give a bad name to countries that export waste like Singapore. How can we ensure that our exported recyclable waste are properly processed and recycled? What happens if we are not able to export the waste for recycling? For example, plastic and packaging waste. Do we just incinerate them? This is not just an accountability issue, but it's also about the integrity of the circular economy approach. If we are not ensuring waste materials get returned to the production-consumption cycle, but are simply trying to get rid of trash to prevent Semakau from filling up, then we are not keeping to the true spirit of the circular economy. Food waste also has a transnational dimension. The recent study by the Singapore Environment Council shows that 1/5 of total food in Singapore, over 390,000 tons of fresh produce, is wasted in the food supply chain. A significant portion, 144,000 tons, are lost when imported food lands in Singapore. Why is this so, and what can MIWA do to reduce this unnecessary wastage? The second issue is that we need to go upstream to tackle the food waste, from tackling wastage in the food supply chain to the way the nation eats. We should deploy the circular economy approach here too in a whole system manner. I mentioned the significant amount of food loss in the importing food chain. One solution is to increase local production to supply food. To this end, the government is targeting to increase local production to meet 30% of local nutritional needs by 2030. Increasing local food production will create other problems of food lost and wasted during the production process. MEWA should therefore look at this area and encourage the reusing of food lost during the production process as animal feed or the recycling into compost for farming. The large-scale processing of food waste will also reap benefits. I understand that when the Tuas Nexus comes online in 2025, food waste and used water sludge will be co-digested to produce biogas for energy production. Does this mean the trade-off is that we will not be benefiting from composting food waste instead? Are the options for food waste treatment either co-digestion to produce biogas or composting to produce fertilizer? If so, what are the calculations of MEWA in choosing co-digestion rather than composting, since the production of compost fertilizer could benefit local farming? The current bill targets commercial and industrial premises that generate large amounts of food waste to undertake food waste segregation for treatment. But given that half of the total food waste generated comes from residential households, should we not require the same undertaking for residential premises? I understand from Minister Masago's reply to my parliamentary question last month that the household food waste segregation pilot was conducted at Tampines Green Lace, and the results were very promising, with 4,000 kilograms of food waste collected over 3 months. Residents even requested for the pilot to be extended. Given the success and the popularity of the pilot, and the fact that we are facing a waste emergency, shouldn't we be bold and extend this now to all HDB estates? The way we Singaporeans eat matter. We import 90% of our food, and yet we consume in abundance with very little awareness of our food security issues. A lot of wastage is caused by near-expiry food being thrown away by both retailers and consumers. Yet, we have a not insignificant group of Singaporeans facing household food insecurity. We need to encourage food donation to produce food waste. I've spoken on this before during the debate on the Singapore Food Agency Bill. The government is in a good position to develop a national food support system to channel excess food to fight household food insecurity in Singapore and feed hungry Singaporeans. We should also legislate good Samaritan laws to protect food donors and food distributors from criminal or civil liability for incidents arising from donated excess food. The third issue is we have hit a green ceiling on education. We need to change our model from communication campaigns to strong and smart nudging using the social norms held by Singaporeans. Domestic recycling rates have remained stuck at 21%. The response by MEWA is to change the labels on the blue bins and paint the recycling trucks blue. We need to do better. If we would identify a social norm that is blocking efforts to encourage domestic recycling and raising green consciousness across Singapore society, it is a norm of convenience. Convenience has become the norm that need no explanation when it comes to demand for government and municipal services. To reduce littering, we make throwing rubbish convenient by placing green rubbish bins all over the city. To promote a hygienic environment, we make garbage disposal convenient by building rubbish chutes in each home or each floor. Using the same reason or excuse, we refuse to consider banning or discouraging plastic bag usage so that residents can conveniently bag their garbage to dispose. Whenever a slight inconvenience is caused by maintenance or repair works, we apologize for it. That is why the blue recycling bin has hit a green ceiling, because the big bin conveniently placed at the foot of the block by the side of the road is a convenient bin to dump any rubbish indiscriminately. At the larger systemic level, we conveniently incinerate our rubbish when we can. We need to change this mindset of convenience. A true circular economy cannot have convenience as the dominant norm guiding our behavior. This is why I think the government is mistaken in its reluctance to tackle single-use plastics as such, despite the strong public calls to do it. It is not a populist move with little systemic impact. Yes, tackling single-use plastics will not have as much impact on reducing the waste streams filling up Semakau than the complex EPR systems being put in place. But it has tremendous educational value that will nudge Singaporeans to change their whole approach to consumption and disposal of waste. Single-use plastics represent the epitome of convenience. For example, single-use plastic water bottles, instead of drinking from a cup that has to be filled and washed, one just has to open, drink and throw. When we tackle single-use plastics, we are not just tackling the plastic. We are challenging the idea of convenience and undermining its importance. We don't have to ban plastic bags to do this. We need to nudge smartly. In some cities, authorities have mandated households to purchase and only use government-certified garbage bags for the disposal of trash. This nudges citizens to think less of convenience and more of the cost of convenience, and leads to overall reduction in the use of plastic bags. We could also consider nudging household food waste segregation by mandating the use of government-certified food waste bags with printed diagrams of what would be considered food waste. Likewise, I remember the early days of our national recycling program, when green, translucent recycling bags were dropped at the doors of each household. On each bag, there were diagrams showing what items can be recycled and what cannot. The recycling bags were inconvenient because it required residents to place items into the bag and bring it out to the lift lobby on a specified date every fortnight. It was also inconvenient as a system because workers needed to go to each floor to collect the bags and bring them down to the truck. But it gave those who would try to recycle purpose and a sense of achievement, and the green bags at home reminded everyone to recycle. Moreover, residents were encouraged and nudged when they can visibly see their neighbor recycle, bumping into the green bags of recyclables at the lift lobby on collection days. Neighbors can even gently correct recycling mistakes since the bag was translucent. It promoted recycling as social behavior and collective action, which is always more effective than to try to change individual behavior. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, we are very far from our zero waste aspiration. The circular economy approach is the right one to adopt. The focus on e-waste, packaging waste, and food waste is also a correct focus. However, we need to pay attention to the growing transnational dimension of our waste streams to ensure our efforts do not go to waste. We also need to go more upstream to tackle the problem of food waste, reducing loss in the food supply chain and recycling food waste for compost to improve local food production. Lastly, we need to double down on education and get all Singaporeans to reduce, reuse, and recycle as their second nature. We should do this by moving away from communication campaigns to social nudging, especially to shake up the norm of convenience at the heart of our problems. This is not just about Semakau filling up, but it's also about how we see ourselves as citizens of this earth, whether we should seek our selfish convenience or to choose to protect Earth for the sake of our children. Thank you. I support the bill.